James Goodale, First Amendment attorney, represented the New York Times back during the Pentagon Papers scandal, author of the new book, Fighting for the Press, the inside story of the Pentagon Papers and Other Battles, is on the phone with us. His website, jamesgoodale, GOODALE.net. And James, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on.
The Senate right now, and it was a few days ago, Dianne Feinstein was ruminating about this out loud, is talking about passing possibly a media shield law in light of various revelations that have come out, like, that James Rosen, I guess it was, has been named as a criminal co-conspirator by the Justice Department. He's a reporter for Fox News, and that other reporters are being spied on and snooped on. And then on top of that, you've got, the whole WikiLeaks thing and everything else. And Dianne Feinstein was saying, well, maybe it should be somebody who actually earns their living as a reporter. They have to have an income. First of all, am I correct in that characterization?
I think that you've got her position correct, but let's face it, these positions are changing by the minute, but I think that is correct.
Yeah. And it just struck me that if the press is genuinely the fourth estate, the way that the founders envisioned it, kind of the fourth branch of government, essentially, the one that kept the other three honest, and that's why it's the only industry that the framers of the Constitution decided to put into the Constitution. It's the only one that's named, not making cannonballs or warships or armies or anything else. I mean, just the press. Then what any kind of media shield law must protect is not so much journalists as it is acts of journalism. And those acts of journalism could be committed by somebody using Twitter, using a blog, using a website, writing for the New York Times, speaking on NBC News. Does that make any sense to you?
No, I think that's correct. I think that one of our problems with the senators who were looking at this will include, as you say, Dianne Feinstein, also Chuck Schumer, are not of the digital age. And so when they think of the press, they think of it in terms of what it was 30 years ago, and it's no longer that. I have a blog, though I wish I were spending more time on it or with it, as indeed a zillion other people do, and we've got to be protected too. Yeah,
and in fact, you could argue that it was, quote, journalists using Twitter and the local Arabic variations of it that sparked the Arab Spring in Tunisia after that street vendor committed suicide.
No, that's absolutely correct. And then, of course, we have this very unusual gentleman, Glenn Greenwald, who is making leaks possible, I should say, by the use of his blog on the net. I would say, in a way, that he's one of the most important journalists around and one of the most accurate.
And this
I don't know if he gets paid. If he gets paid or not, maybe he does. But he made his reputation through his blog.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And a lot of what he did, I'm sure he never got paid for. He might get paid now for some of the writing he does for The Guardian, but if that's the criteria, or is the criteria that you had to go to journalism school or something? I mean, Glenn Greenwald went to law school. He didn't go to journalism school, to the best of my knowledge.
I did. I went to law school, too. And how about me?
Uh-huh.
How about my blog?
There you go.
How about my stuff for the Daily Beast? I think that what we've got, as I said earlier, we've got the senators who tend to be older than the average American, are caught on a time warp.
Well, how do we fix this? How do we educate them? Because they're passing laws that affect all of us, whether we're in the media or not. I mean, this is an age where anybody can become a journalist tomorrow morning, and I'm of the opinion that if they are committing acts of journalism, they should be protected. On the other hand, there's a lot of people who graduated from J school who are working for national and international media who are not actually journalists because they're doing the bean counter stuff. They're doing administrative stuff. They're not committing acts of journalism, and so they don't need protection.
Well, I think that you've got a very difficult question, which is how do we educate Chuck Schumer and Dianne Feinstein? And I think if you really want to know, in my view, it's a hopeless case. And the reason is that they're stuck on WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
And they're going to do anything they can to do up a bill that excludes any protection for WikiLeaks because they just can't see that WikiLeaks is entitled to the protection that journalists get or indeed publishers get. So they've got a WikiLeaks problem.
Yeah, and I think they're not alone in that. I noticed today the president said that he's not going to visit with Mr. Putin during the Russian G20 meeting. Instead, he's going to go to Sweden. Well, Sweden is the country that has indicted Julian Assange.
Well, that's right. I'll tell you what, all this stuff, if you don't mind a plug, since I am the author of a book, but, you know, WikiLeaks and the Reporters' Privilege Bill, that's what we're talking about, a bill that protects reporters and gives them a privilege not to testify. They're all tied together in what I would call the Obama era. He speaks, Obama talks a good game, but when you look at carefully what he's doing, in my humble opinion, he really doesn't want to protect all reporters, and he really wants to get Julian Assange. And as you point out, Assange is wanted in Sweden, and his lawyers will tell you that as soon as he gets to Sweden, he's coming back here to be prosecuted by Mr. Obama's grand jury. At least that's the theory.
Yeah, no, I think that theory is right. And that doesn't mean that President Obama is a bad guy. I mean, the reality is that I don't think we've ever had a president, Republican or Democrat, who embraced the press. I mean, even Jefferson, who complained loudly about the press, they were constantly harassing him and calling him a traitor and everything else. You know, when confronted about that, and he wrote some just agonized letters to close friends of his that we can now read when he was president. He still said, you know, if I had to choose between a country without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I would surely choose the latter.
Yeah, I think that presidents come in different flavors, as you point out, and it doesn't mean necessarily Obama's a bad guy. And when presidents believe they're under threat from outside forces, as Obama does, they're going to not be the first to want to protect the press. Rightfully, they want to protect the people. And,
they want to protect themselves.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, in their administrations and their legacies.
They want to protect themselves. But I'm just trying to give them...
But I mean, Lyndon Johnson covered up the Gulf of Tonkin. Yeah, I mean, Lyndon Johnson covered up what happened with the Gulf of Tonkin, and the evidence now is pretty clear that he knew what happened. And when the press tried to release that, he called them names. I mean, Nixon, look at Nixon and Watergate. I mean, it's Democrats, Republicans. It doesn't matter. I don't remember if Jimmy Carter ever had a clear confrontation with the press or not. He might have been the exception to the rule, but I doubt it. I think that every president kind of likes all that secrecy. Yeah,
well, you got to realize that the president and the government, they're not out to protect the press. Why? Because the press is picking on them.
Yeah. So
why should they protect the press? They've got other fish to fry.
Right. So protecting the press becomes the duty of the first branch of government, the first among equals, the legislative branch, and they're not going to act unless we let them know that we care about it. And so we should be calling our senators and our members of the House of Representatives saying we want a media shield law that protects acts of journalism, not just journalists. James Goodale, if I may say, James Goodale, jamesgoodale.net. Hang on just a second, James.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Sorry, that guy always steps on me. jamesgoodale.net. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Good talking. We'll be right back.